Hey man, hey Sean. If you folks can let me know if you can hear me okay, I would appreciate that with maybe a thumbs up. Yep, sure is Sean. Appreciate it. Hello, Mr. Arthur. Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate that, bud. Appreciate it. Hey Joe. Thank you, Edward. Hope everything's good down in Florida. Sean, thank you very much. Hello, Mr. George. Hey Greg. Thank you, Travis. Thank you, my man. Appreciate it. Mini mess. He's at play practice this evening, but yeah, we'll we'll do that. I appreciate that. He's very excited. Uh, he's been tying for a little bit, and it's just one of those things that you encourage. You don't over encourage, but um, you can burn a kid out in many areas, whether it's athletics and things like that. I've seen it for years, but he's really dialed in on those crappy jigs and things like that. He actually did a little fishing yesterday while I was at work. The weather here is honestly it's quite mild. I wish it would get consistently colder here, but uh, it's been really weird. I was on the water Friday with a client, and we were throwing we were throwing reaper midges, um, RS2s, things like that, and it was a great dry fly eat. So, um, yeah, yeah. Hello there from Canada. Hope you folks are doing well up there. Looks like I've seen some snow up your way. I enjoy going to Canada. I've been up there hunting and fishing both, so uh, awesome stuff up through there. Love hearing you folks talk up there in that French Canadian accent for sure. So yeah, 75 in Florida. I got to tell you, Edward, it's I'm not for sure how warm it got today. We did hit 70, a little over 70 on Friday. Very mild today. We do have rain coming in, and we're in dire needs of rain for sure here. We got burns bans all across the state. We could use the rain. I know Tim, Casey, and Braden, when they was here in October, if they could see the water now compared to what it was in October on the 17th, it's significantly less. I mean, honestly, the AC unit could be on, could have the windows open right now, but not for sure there. So yeah, I'm sure it's not 75 in Delaware. Got some friends up there in Vermont and seen some snow up that way there too. So it is December, and golly, Christmas is around the corner, and you just always associate Thanksgiving, the holiday season, with just cooler weather. And it's just so far, it's just not hit. Yeah, snowy Northwest Montana, Rick. Definitely, you guys need a good snowpack this year out there, for sure. Yeah, everything out there last year, the water, on some of the, a lot of the areas was bony for sure. Whether you're floating or wading, it was a interesting summer. Water flows for you folks out there, and I hope that the good Lord blesses all y'all with a good snowpack and everything like that. Hey, Michael, hope you're doing well. Eric, um, just to let you folks know, I'm a one man show here right now, and I am actually got my iPhone 11 Pro Max. I've got it turned in the portrait position. And the reason why I have it done this way is because when I go over these feathers with you folks this evening, I want you to be able to kind of see what I'm talking about there. It wouldn't be so good in that landscape mode. So instead of using my Elgato Cam Link and things like that and Filmic Pro, I'm just using the front-facing phone on camera on my iPhone, and hopefully folks can see that. With that being said, as I get to going, if you have a question and I miss it, I will catch up to it maybe after the event. Also, look for it on YouTube. And obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit that, smash that like and subscribe button, and also share it. And just a disclaimer: hope everything's good out there in California, Ecuador. That's awesome. People were looking forward to going down to South America doing some fishing, but they've got all these variants. Who knows anymore, right? Oh my gosh! But great fishing, and thank you folks for tuning in from Ecuador. Christopher, man, good to see you on there. Looks like your family's been having a lot of adventures. It's good to see that. Northern Idaho. I've got a good friend, a high school friend, lives out there in Salmon, Idaho. Russell, I got to hook up with and go do some fishing with him out there for sure. Via horseback. Thoughts on Green River? Maybe I'm thinking, or maybe Green River. It's awful. We have 2 miles of riverfront property. It's covered in sand. Oh Lord, how? Got you. Yeah, got you there, Bob. Appreciate you tuning in for sure. So we've got about 47 on here, and actually it's a little after 7:00. This year's probably going to be maybe a little bit shorter than some of the other ones we've done. But what I want to go over with you folks is specifically dry fly hackle feathers. I brought this up to Tim maybe 3 weeks ago. Tim can correct me on that, about doing something like this. And since then, I've seen a couple of videos come out on YouTube from some really good people. The ironic thing about this is that I had planned to do this a while back. Apparently people read my mind and wanted to do their own thing, and that's perfectly fine. So there's great resources out there. But I want to go over some things that I've learned over the years and some of the common questions I get asked in the shop when it comes to dry fly feathers. For you folks who may have been tying for many years, 80s, 90s, you know that we've seen a significant change in our birds, and it has to do with specific genetic breeding for these birds. And for us as a tyer, that's a good thing. Let's think back to many years ago. And Diego, no, I'm not going to be tying any streamers for you this evening. Sorry about that. But let's think about where, at least for our family and our ancestors here in Western North Carolina, you had a few birds running around your house, for eggs and things like that. So yeah, those clicks, man, they're pretty cool. It's cool there, David. And the thing about that was those were your feathers that you used for your flies. And understand that people were using those flies not only for pleasure, but most importantly to put food on the table for their family. It was a form of, to compensating, for the farming they did and things in the area. So they did that to put food on the table. But the quality of feathers, of course, what you go pluck off your own bird that could be running around the yard, and let's just face the facts, they were around the porch and all around. You had a Dominecker, which is a grizzly feather, and you might have had a Rhode Island Red, rooster, and you would pick off those feathers off the rooster for your flies. But we have huge selection. Whether I grew up with Metz, Ewing, you had Hoffman, and now of course your dominant player is going to be, as we all know, is Dr. Whiting out in Colorado. They're excellent. However, one of the things you have to keep in mind is the price point of the feathers you're using. So depending on what you are tying, hopefully I can show you some options here this evening and some things about when you select some hackle feathers or you select a cape or a saddle that's going to be more beneficial to you, so you get the most for your money. And that's what I want to do. That's the whole goal here. The whole goal is not for me to sit here and tie 4 dry flies. That's not the case. What I'll do is go over the feathers. I'll reposition the camera, put my jaws back in here, and I'm going to show you some of the things that you can do with the feathers to make them either go on your hook a little bit differently or a little bit cleaner, depending on what you're trying to achieve. So with that being said, I'm going to hydrate here for just a second, if you folks don't mind. And we're going to get started. So I'm going to grab some feathers. So right here, this here is actually an old Metz. You see it's kind of brown in color. And this would be a typical, cape that we would have got, some years back. You're going to notice here that the length of these feathers, they're not quite as long as some of the ones we're going to get today, and I'm going to show you here in a little bit. But this is what drives the price of your particular capes and your saddles up. One of the reasons that is the longer feather you get, the more flies you can get out of that particular feather. The other things you have to look at when you're looking at these feathers is you have to look at how much webbing that you have on the particular feather, and you have to see where that particularly ends on here. Also, the thickness of the stem. A thinner, more supple stem ties a lot easier on your hook shank, parachute post. But I got it, and you get a feather today that actually twists a little bit less than they used to. But with that being said, sometimes you are going to have them twist no matter what you do. But this here would be a Mets cape from a long time ago. So the cape comes off, just think about Superman. Think about Superman's cape, Batman's cape. You can see where this has been cut. Those are the feathers that are kind of lying down his back. You can kind of see that patch right there. See the skin in there for you. So you can kind of get an idea of actually where that is on the position of the bird. Now, when you get a cape, even this cape here, as old as this is, there was a lot of uses in this particular cape. One of those being the fact that we would take the spay hackle off the sides, which are your typical hackle here on the sides, which in some cases are not best suited for a lot of other things. We would do two things with these guys. We would make hackle tip wings for mayflies. You would take these fibers here and use those for telling materials, where a lot of you folks use Coke de Leon today. We would be using these particular feathers, and they still work fantastically for you. Or you would take your fingernail clippers, and you can make some hackle cut wings on this, okay? So when I tell people, when I'm helping them select feathers, is try to maximize the use out of everything you buy, whether it's a cape, whether it's a saddle. Now, with a cape, you do get a wide variety of feather sizes. So when you're down here, real close to the deck, you're going to see these real tiny guys in here. So think about your small flies, your midges, your things like that. But as we continue to move up, and you can see where I've probably picked that out really good, you kind of get in your 12s and your 14s and your 16s. For us here in North Carolina, 14, 16s, that's your dominant size, of course, for most of our flies. But I like to use some 10s, some 12s. However, if you take this cape here and you look at the back side of this. Now, let's think about woolly boogers. If you look at these feathers up top here, I can pull one of these guys off. If you look at this here, this would be a great woolly booger feather. But I also like, when I'm looking at feathers, I like some of the, I don't want to say inconsistency, but some of the variants that you find in this here for sure. Those add another element to your fly. So if you're designing dry flies or whatever fly you're designing, some of these nice color variations in here adds another element to it. Whether it catches or it doesn't catch fish, it just kind of makes your fly stand out amongst the crowd of other flies out there in the market. And I saw the comment there a while ago about the quality going down. And yeah, I think there was a couple of things that happened with that. The fashion industry, one thing, really drove the prices of the feathers up for sure, because they were being used by rock stars and things like that. Yeah, this would be, Diego, this would be good for a woolly booger. It sure would. But also think about maybe, some of the streamer patterns that maybe Braden or Corey, Kendrick, or some of those folks could be tying. You could see those potentially used there as well. So if you've only got a limited budget, a cape is a great option. So what I want you to think about here, and just kind of tattoo this in your brain for just a minute, is this cape here has got a little age on it. I'm not one to really get rid of stuff, so I hang on to it and always kind of find I'm going to use it somehow, some way, somewhere down the road for sure. So let me grab another one I just got recently. Now this one right here, folks, this one here, and I'm not promoting any brand here. Let me just get that real clear though with you, okay? But this here is an awesome. It's a golden badger, and it's a it's a Herbert. It's by Whiting Farms. But one of the things I want you to notice here right off the bat is look at the difference in the length of these feathers here. So this particular feather here is going to give me, depending on, maybe 2 flies out of it, depending on how many wraps you put on it. But you see the consistency. And that's one of the biggest differences, even with, a co, and I'm probably going to mispronounce that, but which comes from hairline. There's sliding in hackle out there. You can see their stuff as well. I've never used it. If you have, feel free to leave a comment and chime in on that. But if you look at how many feathers here that we have that are so useful, so one of the biggest differences is that. Number 2, somebody mentioned a while ago, is barbial density, barbules, whatever you want to call those things. And that is important too, because the whole point of this here in a lot of cases on your dry fly is to help support that fly, help suspend that fly so it, so it floats. So that is important. So that is huge difference today that we have that we didn't have years ago. Understanding though that the price points on these here, they are going to be more money, but in my professional opinion, whether I use that term loosely, but in my opinion, over the years, this is a much better value for you. And I think most importantly, this is going to allow you to tie a better fly. Hands down, bar none, a much better fly. It just is easier when you have quality products. It's so much better. It makes a huge difference right there. I know Rick says he likes the Herbert Minor. Brian, the Collins hackle is small but great colors. I think that's the cool thing about it. We are seeing, it's almost like our microbreweries. Maybe they're like micro feather breeders. Maybe that's a great way to say it out there. If you're at a show, you can find some quality stuff. And that's where it's important when you are selecting a cape or a saddle, is that you have the ability to open it up, you inspect the feathers, see what you're getting, see what's useful, see what's not useful on it, and make sure you're getting the best value that you can. So that way you can you just maximize your dollars and maybe buy something else. Maybe it's a Nor-vise tool caddy that you might need, and you have a little money left over for that. Travis says he buys a lot of bronze Euro hackle. I've never used those. I think I know some folks that are using the Coke de Leon rooster and some dry fly hackles as well. So I've never done that. So love to hear about that there as well. But just kind of the brief synopsis. These here are capes. You can get a full cape. Let's see here. Thought I had a half. You can get a half cape. I apologize for that. Sometimes you can get some half. So if you're using certain colors for some, this one right here is a olive. It's a grizzly dyed olive. It allows you the ability to be creative. Here's kind of a cream. You look at that, great feathers. I'm looking in here, a lot of great uses I've got out of this guy here, but you can see where I've really picked over that really well in through there too. So I did just see a comment about saddles. I'm going to get into that there, and yes, you're absolutely correct. So saddles, boy, the unique thing about a saddle and these capes that we currently seeing. So back in the 90s, you could get a Hoffman saddle, and the feathers on these capes today are about as long as those feathers were, which really kind of got the ball rolling for what we currently have here today. And Edward is correct, and your question is absolutely correct. there are a couple of ways that you can buy some saddle feathers. You can buy them prepackaged in 100 packs, and they're already specifically sized for you. So if you are potentially tying 14s, you could buy a pack of 14, and typically you could get 100 or so flies out of that, depending on how many wraps you're putting on that. But in my opinion, for me, and I tie a lot of flies, these are the better value for me. However, here's the downside. You're only going to usually get about two sizes in here. So like a 12-14, a 14-16. That's the thing you have to understand. So when you're looking at these feathers, these saddles, you have to make sure this is going to cover the flies that you're going to be tying, and that's super important. These are fantastic. You can kind of see how supple that stem is as I move it around there. I don't know if you can tell how good the barbell count is on that, but those are things that I'm looking for just because of the performance of the fly, the floatability that I'm looking to get out of it, but also the look. There is some not as much fluff. You see, this is such a much more usable piece today than what we had years ago. However, if we look here on the side, this could be a Braden Miller piece. If we think about that there for maybe one of those streamer patterns or something like that. Chris, thanks for joining there. Ryan, I appreciate you folks that are just joining with us. So, a lot of uses on these. Just because it's dry fly specific, do not be afraid to experiment with these softer materials. It could be at connection points on an articulated streamer, things like that. So, these are what I prefer to tie with because, number one, I like the length. I don't like to use the hackle pliers. But also I can get real specific on the feather sizes that I'm working with there. And when I'm spinning out, several dozens of a certain pattern, and of course they're all 16s, I can rock and roll. And time is money, not to make money, but time is a new currency, folks. We have to understand that. So if you can maximize your time, that allows you to have more time to go do other things out there, other than just kind of sitting there and selecting peach, trying to decide, is this a 12, is this an 18, what have I got? Now, I'm going to grab another one here. I've picked through some of these here quite well. You can kind of see through here. I've picked through this one quite a bit, and I'm getting down to some funky sizes. This one's a little older, but you can even see the quality even between this one and the one I just had in my hand. There's such a difference in that. Now, I don't have a picture to show you of where it comes out on the bird. My apologies for that. They do exist out there online for sure. So if you Google that, cape versus saddle, where it comes from, that's going to maybe point that out to you there as well. So when they get into the grading of these feathers, a couple things that they look at. Number one is, has the feather drug the ground? If so, are the tips kind of broken off? You might can find that most of the feathers are going to be useful because you're not going to use the tip, and you might could get a great saddle or a great cape for all the useful feathers, but maybe a grade lower that's a better value than I just don't use the tips. We just don't. Usually we're tying, we get to the point, we cut it, and we go to the next feather. So just keep that in mind too there. But you can see on the back side of here near the skin, you can see some of these things in through here. They could be useful in other areas. Kind of slopping-esque, however you say that fancy word. But anyway, there you go. Grizzly, by far the hardest color to get, but in fly tying, it is the most, probably the most used color for us there. I have never, ever dyed feathers. If you folks have, I'd love for you folks to comment down below. Let us know what kind of success you had, how you did it. Did you use Rit dye? I have heard of people using Kool-Aid. So let us know kind of how that went there for you. What I have done though is taking one of these feathers, a piece of cardboard, and taking a Sharpie and colored it to get that colorization, for instance, on there that worked out quite well. Yeah, nice for mosquitoes. That is correct. And actually, what a really good fly pattern. Pretty close to a griffin's gnat, but my goodness, it's what a usable fly. Heck, they're everywhere, right? I know we have them here in North Carolina, not too terribly bad. They're awful in Canada. Man, if you're up there bear hunting, archery season, whoo! If you ain't got a bug suit on, man, you getting attacked. No doubt about that for sure. Okay, so talking about dyeing feathers, good friend of mine, John DeMuth over in Kingsport, Tennessee, Johnson City area, and Katie stopped by the shop and brought in some pretty cool color variations of some of the saddles that they had, and I don't know how well it'll show up. The kind of right here is kind of a bluish colored one that had been dyed. You've got a red, definitely a red color one in here as well. I like the first one I had here is kind of a March Brown color that I showed you, similar to this here. You kind of get into some of those yallers in through there. We call it yaller here in North Carolina. Don't know what y'all call it where you're at. But these are some really neat colors, and you look at variations. So, for instance, like you could get like a barred ginger or a ginger, but let's say it has some kind of variation. I love that stuff. It's awesome. So, Rick says he loves dyeing feathers, and he used red. So that's awesome, man. I'm just afraid that I'm going to screw something up. So, Sweet Tea, he's a Southern. Sean, you're funny. Y'all know what the podcast name is, if you catch my drift there for sure. So anyway, but this is what's cool today. This is tremendous, and for someone who's just getting into fly tying, gollies, get 100 packs. If you're tying size 16s, man, you can find them in other brands other than Whiting, but you can get that for sure there. So which is really, really cool for you. Okay. So hopefully that right there answers some questions for you folks there. The next thing I want to go over with you, excuse me while I kind of move that stuff out of the way, is I'm just going to pick up one of these feathers here real quick, is feather, prep. So if you look here, let's look at the bottom of this feather here. There's a lot of, I say there's not a whole lot of fluff in here, but if you're really trying to, get my drill. Oh, Dale, I got you. Yep. So if we take this feather here and we prep it to tie in, there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can take your trusty scissors right here. You can cut off down here where you do get your usable